welcome to this revision webinar. I hope everyone has had a lovely day. So my name is Sophie. I am the Head of School Success here at Educake. I was a science teacher for 6 years and a head of department for 4 before joining Educake. So today we're going to be covering the following areas. So top tips for students, so revision tips for students, Educate reports, the analysis tool to help with Easter revision, and also how to ease the stress of revision lessons with Educake. If you're not familiar with Educake, we are going to pop in the chat box a link to our website, a link to our demo site where you can book a demo with one of our fabulous team, and also a link to set up a free trial. For attending this webinar, you will get an extended free trial all the way until the 28th of April to cover you over the revision season. So let's get started with students. The student homepage is really easy to use, and some of you might already be familiar, but in essence, there are 4 key sections that students can use to revise. So in the centre, we have the orange section, which is where teacher set quizzes and assessments will show. So students can access all of their homeworks from this area. We then have the study and quiz yourself section in purple. We have Revision Wizard at the top, which I'll be going over in a little bit. And at the bottom, you actually can see the green section, which is where students can review all of their previously set homeworks and quizzes. So they can very quickly see which ones will be useful to retake to enhance their understanding. So for example, with the ones that we can see on the screen, chemistry, earth resources homework, you can see the percentages really clearly, all colour-coded. Only 33% was the score for that one. Definitely that will be a quiz that the student should be retaking. When they click on a quiz to retake, they get a really nice overview of how they actually did in that quiz. So this is an example of an English quiz. The orange button enables them to retake it again, and they can retake quizzes as many times as they want, which really helps with recall and retention of the knowledge. So the topics in that quiz are listed below, and again, it has some really useful percentages highlighted, so you can quite quickly see that extract 3 was where the student sort of fell down with this quiz. So that is an area where they need to go and revise. So it's just really easy to help them target their revision. At any point during quizzes, they can contact the teachers. So at the end of a quiz, they get an evaluation table. This is really useful for sort of written feedback. They can explain how they found the quiz, what didn't go quite so well. Once they submit it, the teacher will receive that, and you can write an answer to it and also give your feedback to the students. So it's a two-way communication, which is really valuable. They can also query any of their answers, which is a little button whilst they're doing the quiz. If they think that they got it right or wrong, or they're not quite sure, or they really feel they only spelt it a little bit incorrectly, they can actually disagree with the mark, which is really helpful when all of our quizzes are obviously multiple choice or short answer, and you can override the system if you need to, and you will see that message when you're on your home page. And you can also write a response to them, again enabling that communication. Teachers can also just write feedback to their students, even if the student hasn't given them any. So if you go to the quiz results page, if you actually click the pencil icon, that is where you can just communicate with students. So Educake's fantastic for immediate feedback to their answers from the actual system, but it also has the functionality to write written feedback to students as well, which is, again, really important. So students can also take ownership of their own revision. So in addition to any teacher set quizzes that they can take or redo, they can also revise independently. And this is the purple section on their homepage. So they get a nice overview of how they're doing for an entire subject. So for the whole of science, this student is scoring 57%. If they want to leave out subjects or questions they've got right recently, if they click the blue button, it will only show their weakest topics, again, streamlining their revision to where it's needed the most. So if they want to set themselves a quiz on the whole of science, they can do that from this page. If they want to be a little bit more bespoke with their revision, if they click on the subject, so be that English, geography, history, it will then take them right down to individual unit levels, right down into individual sort of topics as well. So for example, here, this student has drilled down into science, and you can see that reactions of acids and metals, again with the percentage color-coded, is an area they need to go and revise. And they can just very quickly set themselves an independent quiz. So this is independent to anything that the teachers have set. They can just go off and set themselves extra quizzes and really get that recall and really drill down into that area of science. So another top tip that students can do from Educake is whilst they're completing the quiz, as I said before, all the answers are obviously multiple choice answers or short answers, but every single answer will always be given an explanation, even if they get it right or wrong. So it's great for them to be able to write revision cards from, if that is how the students revise the best. So they can write down what the question was and then write down the explanation. So you can see here, the explanations are quite detailed. So they give them some really valuable background information around that question and around that topic. So they can really drill down into the understanding of the question. And lastly, for students, they have that blue button at the top of their homepage, which is Revision Wizard. So this is an algorithm that actually learns what the students are good and bad at. So it's very bespoke. It's for every individual student. And it's really good for students that are perhaps a little bit disengaged or less motivated, because they don't have to go and try and figure out which subjects they need to revise. They just click Revision Wizard and it gives them 3 options: learn something new, revise, or even I'm not sure. And the system will generate quizzes tailored for that student. So it's just a repetitive button that they can press, and they just get really, really valuable quizzes that are differentiated for them. So at any point during this webinar, if you have any questions, please do pop them in the Q&A box and we will definitely address them at the end. But I'm going to move on now from students to actually looking at Educake reports, which are another really useful feature that Educake has that sometimes customers don't actually realise are there. And they actually provide some really useful insights into structuring revision for students. So the first type of report that you can get from Educake is a quiz report. So this is based on a specific quiz that you have set as a teacher. And it is located by clicking on a student's name on the quiz results page. So if you click on the student's name, it will give you the option for a quiz report for that student. And as you can see, you get a breakdown of performance by topic, and also, really importantly, performance by question type. So for each different subject that we have, the question types will obviously be different. So for example, with English, it will be your assessment objectives. It will break it down into, this one I believe is science. So you can see how the students are doing per question type. And often students don't actually know what question types they're good and bad at. And this really points it out for them, which is really useful. For this student, for example, application questions and units are areas that they are struggling with. The quiz report also breaks down every single question, and they can see all the questions in one place as well. So fantastic to print out for students to take home for revision purposes, great to email to parents, or really good if you're trying to sort of create intervention bundles or revision packs that are differentiated for different students. In addition to a specific quiz report, you can also get subject reports. So these are, as you'd expect, just for an entire subject. It has collated the information. So it sort of takes it one step further than just that quiz report. And you can locate these by clicking on the magnifying glass symbol next to any student's name in any of those 3 areas on Educake. So on the right-hand side, you can see this is for the whole of science now. How are they doing per subject? So for English, for example, it'd be split into language and literature, etc. You can also see for the whole of a subject, how they're doing on question types. And then it actually breaks it down into strongest and weakest topics as well. Again, just really powerful for revision purposes to give to students to tailor their revision. And I forgot to mention, but you can actually print off class sets of those as well. So it's just really nice and easy for you to enable you to do that. So in excess of kind of doing those quiz reports, we also have the analysis tool, which really helps with Easter revision. So the analysis tool is fairly new, and it has 3 different views on it. So you can see percentage correct, strengths and weaknesses of students, and also how many questions students have answered. So how engaged are the students? And really importantly, you can actually filter it by student set questions only. So what are they doing independently? Or you can see what you're setting the students. So you can see who's revised over Easter, and actually how well have they done with their revision over Easter. In addition to that, you can see generally what are the key areas that I need to focus on for that last little push in our revision lessons just before the exams, and it gives you just such valuable insights. So this is a sort of overview of the analysis tool in terms of percentage correct. So you can drill down from how is the whole school doing for a subject, how are they comparing to the national average. We had our 2 billionth question answered recently, so we've got some really good data. You could expand any of those subjects right down to individual topic and unit levels. You can look at how whole year groups are doing. If you click on a year group, it will go to the classes. If you click on the classes, it will go right down to the individual students as well. So you can really see where the intervention is needed, and also what we're doing over the Easter holidays. And any of those percentages, or those little tiles, are expandable to a specific report as well. So this is a 3rd type of report that you can actually get from Educake. And these are really, really detailed. So every piece of data on the analysis tool has context. So if you click on it, you can compare to different classes, different year groups. How is a student doing in comparison to how they normally perform just before the exams? How many questions did they set themselves? So for example, this student, Alex, he's actually set himself 5,000 questions. So the student is obviously very engaged with their independent revision. And I can actually go to the analysis tool and see what subjects was he setting himself, how did he do on those subjects. So it's just really, really powerful. And you can also expand this report even further by clicking on View Printable Report, and it gives you even more data. So there's just an absolute ton of information that you can get on how students are doing, and really how classes are doing, and how you're planning and your revision lessons. Which brings me on to the last part of this webinar. So how can you actually ease the stress of revision lessons? Because often they can be quite stressful, quite chaotic sometimes, and you really want to be ensuring that you're making the most of those final few moments with your students before the exams. So one way that you can use Educake is you can use Educake to scaffold into exam questions. So often that is part of the battle, is making sure that they understand the content, and then actually how do you apply it to an exam question. So for example, with Educake, here is an example of an exam question. You could show the students the exam question. You could highlight the key concepts they need to have the understanding of. You could set an Educate quiz then on red blood cells and plant cells. We also have for science a brand new shiny exam technique topic. So you could also set them a quiz on the command word in this exam question. If you're not science and you would be interested in an exam technique topic for your subject, please do pop it in the chat box or contact your account manager, because we always value feedback, and we heard from science that this was something that was going to be really important and really helpful for them. So with this question, you've identified the areas that you can use Educate to get the baseline knowledge for. You can set the quizzes, and then you can actually go over any misconceptions as a class before you show them how to actually answer the question. So to identify misconceptions with Educake, it's really easy. Once the quiz has been completed, you get your quiz results page. You can see how the whole class have done for specific questions. So in this instance, question 2, only 45% of the students have answered question 2 correctly. So question 2 is obviously a bit of a problem. If I click on question 2, I actually get all the misconceptions up straight away. So very easily I can see 9 students answered it correctly, but 5 have put this incorrect answer and 4 students have put this as an incorrect answer. So I need to clear this up before I move on, because evidently these 2 are problem areas. So to do that, you can actually come back to the results page. In front of the whole class, if you select whiteboard view, it hides all the students' names. And this time, when you click on question 2, it brings up the question, but you're already armed with the knowledge of what they put as the incorrect answers, and you can really go over it as a class and explain why those 2 areas were not the correct answer. And so you've already cleared up that misconception, enabling you to have confidence that they know the content, and then you can obviously show them how you would structure and plan this exam question. So this is quite useful for longer answer subjects, or for example in science, 6-mark questions. And so it just shows you how you can sort of scaffold Educake really into those questions. You can also write your own questions. This is a feature that was added again not so long ago. So at the end of the pre-made questions that Educake have, there's a little button that says write your own question, and you can add as many questions as you want to a topic. So if you want to stretch and challenge students, or put maybe more of an exam sort of style question, it will still be multiple choice, but it gives you that option to add whatever you want into that topic. So that is a really useful additional feature to help with writing revision content. Educake is fantastic, as you've probably seen, in terms of identifying problem areas and misconceptions. So if you set Educake as a homework or a starter, you can very quickly review the scores and actually group students based on weak areas. So instead of just sort of saying, let's go over this topic and then please fill out this mind map, students often just go to the bits that they know on revision mats or in revision booklets, or just colour in and highlight the bits that they know, because that's what they kind of gravitate towards. Whereas with this, if you're already armed with really valuable insights, you can be like, right, you 5, you need to go and do that specific mind map because that's the area that you're struggling with. Or you 4, go and do that revision booklet because from my analysis, that's the area that you need to be working on. So it just enables you and takes that heavy lifting off differentiating revision in your lessons. You can also use Educake as a whole lesson as well. So you can definitely use Educake Live in lessons. Students can use Educake on their phones to full capacity. So if they use it through the browser, they can have full access to Educake. You obviously can use it with iPads or in computer rooms. But if you don't actually have access to technology within lessons, mini whiteboards you can also use and just beam up the quiz on the board and just get the students answering on mini whiteboards as well. So definitely could use it as a starter or plenary in lessons. You can set different quizzes to different groups of students within a class, and that's great for differentiation. So you just unselect students when you're setting quizzes and reselect. So there's just lots of different flexibility when you're setting quizzes. You can add links to your quizzes. So if you wanted to say to students, watch this video, you've linked it, look at this revision pack, again, you've linked it, and then do the Educate quiz. And then based on your result, please come and select a specific exam question. So you could really pad out an entire lesson around Educake. Students can also, obviously, as I showed you earlier, use the study and quiz yourself section. So if you've got some real students that are really, really good at sort of like independently revising, they can just take themselves off and just work through the purple sections and the retaking quizzes sections and revision wizard on Educake independently. And also Educake's great for setting extension tasks as well. So if your revision lesson is more written and then you just need some extension work, you can set Educake quizzes very easily. And all the time, you're getting that immediate data about the revision and just ensuring that what you're doing last minute is really impactful and valuable. So that was a very quick overview of how Educake can be used for revision. If you have any questions, please do pop them in the chat box. And thank you so much for taking the time to listen in today. For customers, if you do have any extra questions, as I said earlier, please do contact your account managers. They'd be more than happy to help you and provide any extra sessions for your departments over the revision season. And for any non-customers, all of the links that I mentioned earlier are on the screen now. We will pop them in an email to you as well. And as I said, the trial will be extended for you as well. If you don't have any questions, you can always email us at support@educake.co.uk. So thank you so much for listening. Have a lovely evening.